From my high perch within the jagged spires of our capital, I observed them, a speck of movement on the sprawling continent below. The humans were clustered in a settlement no larger than a single quadrant of our map, a mere whisper against the vastness of our empire. Yet even from this distance I could see it, a vitality that defied scale, a rhythm in their gestures that spoke of life unbroken by fear. They moved with purpose, yet with a reckless abandon, hunting and tending, gathering and building, all in a pulse that seemed both chaotic and impossibly precise. I tilted my ocular sensors to focus on a lone human boy crouched near a riverbank, flint in hand. He paused, scanning the horizon, and in that instant his eyes caught the reflection of the sun. It flared briefly, and I sensed it, not just light, but intention, a determination that was alien to our kind. They are insignificant, I reminded myself, tiny, fragile, their huts made of mud and timber, their tools crude. And yet, there was a fire in them. I had seen animals survive against odds, seen predators stalk their prey, but never had I witnessed such audacious resilience. Our intelligence dismissed them as harmless. We whispered among ourselves that the eradication would be simple. Ships, squads, precision strikes. They would fall without ceremony. Confidence, I realized, was a luxury we could not afford. Every movement of the humans suggested calculation, instinct, and a hunger for survival that bordered on the fanatical. I noted how they communicated silently, nods and gestures carrying meaning I could not fully decode. Even the elders, bent with age, moved with deliberation that suggested foresight. As I traced the smoke from their cooking fires, my chest tightened. There was an intangible energy, something that prickled at the edges of my perception, a forbidden current of life that hinted at capabilities beyond what we anticipated. Small, yes, but dangerous. A spark in a forest of complacency, ready to ignite. Night fell, draping their village in shadows. Their lanterns flickered like fireflies, dancing over walls and paths. I watched as a pack of humans moved silently toward the woods, tools in hand, eyes wide and alert. Even in darkness, they navigated with a coordination that seemed preternatural. It was not merely instinct, it was understanding, a comprehension of the land and its threats far beyond simple survival. I felt an unbidden dread curl in my chest.
My kind prides itself on logic, control, the calculated elimination of threats. Yet here, before a village we deemed inconsequential, logic faltered. Observation alone was insufficient. I had glimpsed something forbidden, resilience that ignored risk, courage that flouted reason. The village pulsed with life, defiant and untamed. And then, as if to punctuate the warning my instincts whispered, a human lifted his head and stared directly toward my observation point. I froze. The tiny speck of a being, barely taller than a child, had seen me, or perhaps sensed me. And in that glance, I understood. This was no ordinary species. Small, yes, but capable of setting empires aflame. I recoiled slightly, unsure whether to retreat or watch further, knowing that the coming days would reveal just how potent such an ember could become. The winds shifted. Shadows lengthened, and in the flickering twilight, the humans vanished into the forest, leaving only the echo of their defiance behind. I remained, perched atop the towers, consumed by a singular thought. Even the smallest spark, I realized, can ignite an inferno. The warships arrived at dawn, gliding through the clouds with a precision that should have signaled inevitable victory. From above, their village appeared fragile, a scattering of huts and narrow paths swallowed by the surrounding forest. Our commanders, confident and methodical, unleashed the first barrage. Plasma beams tore through the timber and mud, cutting clean lines into the earth, while high-yield explosives detonated with deafening roars, scattering debris in every direction. Smoke spiraled into the morning sky, blotting out the sun. Yet through the haze I saw the humans, not running, not screaming, but moving. They moved with a chaos that was oddly deliberate. Mothers carried children into hollowed-out caves. Hunters, though small and poorly armed, emerged from the shadows to confront our troops. Their weapons were primitive, crude even, yet somehow each shot found a mark. Traps, laid without pattern yet devastatingly effective, incapacitated squads we had trained to be invincible. One moment a team advanced, confident in the superiority of their armor. The next, a pit concealed beneath leaves swallowed them whole, their screams echoing in the valley. I cataloged each failure, each moment when our soldiers faltered against a foe we had written off as weak. Even the elders astonished me.
Bent with age, trembling with what should have been fear, they manned barricades made of mud, timber, and crude stone, swinging tools, hurling incendiaries, and guiding younger humans with a command that was unshakable. One old woman stood atop a hill, a bow clutched in hands that had long lost dexterity, yet every arrow struck, each shot slowing the advance of squads 10 times her size. I felt an alien recognition, the tightening of my chest as I realized the scale of audacity before me. The forest itself seemed complicit in their defense. Trees became cover, streams redirected to create barriers, loose stones transformed into deadly projectiles. Every move of our forces was anticipated, every formation disrupted, every expectation of swift victory shattered by ingenuity and courage that defied calculation. Smoke and fire filled the air. The acrid tang of burnt earth and human resolve stung my senses. The screams of our soldiers, terrified and enraged, reverberated across the hills, yet the humans did not falter. Hours passed, and the village endured. We recalibrated, calling in more troops, more firepower, but with each strike they adapted, they learned, they adjusted. I observed small squads dismantling traps we had thought unassailable, redirecting our own forces into ambushes. Each engagement revealed a quality I could not quantify: fearlessness, pure and raw, untethered by reason, driven by something deeper than survival. This was reckless courage, alien in its simplicity and devastating in its impact. By midday, our pride began to crumble. Commanders barked orders that went unheeded. Squads hesitated as another human ambush took its toll. Smoke and ash clung to the valley, and through it I saw the villagers emerge from hidden nooks and makeshift tunnels, eyes bright with defiance. They were teaching us. To underestimate them was fatal. Even as we withdrew, battered and humiliated, I could not shake the image of their eyes, clear, unwavering, and filled with a courage I had never witnessed. And yet there was a subtle thrill beneath my fear. They were small, fragile, easily dismissed, but alive, resilient, learning, adapting. The ember I had glimpsed from the spires was no longer a flicker. It was a spark threatening to ignite. As our ships receded, the village remained intact, smoke curling into the sky, like a silent signal. I recorded every detail, every act of defiance, knowing in the pit of my sensors that the humans had survived not through strength, but through will. By the time darkness fell, their village had not only survived, it had survived in a way that demanded recognition. Our pride, our confidence, lay in ruins, and somewhere deep in the forest, I sensed it, a spark of something larger, something unstoppable, growing in the hearts of beings we had once thought insignificant. The humans were not merely enduring, they were evolving, and I feared, even then, that we had witnessed the first moments of our own undoing. Weeks passed, yet the village below did not wither beneath our gaze. Instead, it evolved. From my observation point high above the valley, I watched the humans rebuild, not just repair, but reconstruct with an audacity that defied all expectation. Walls, once splintered and blackened, rose stronger, fortified with timber reinforced by stone, aligned to channels and elevations that revealed careful thought, precise calculation. Roofs were angled, channels dug to divert rain, traps buried, hidden yet lethal. Every movement suggested foresight, every placement, strategy. Children, once cowering in corners, now moved with confidence, their small hands gripping tools that were extensions of their bodies. Even the youngest seemed to understand the rhythm of preparation, the timing of ambush, the significance of observation. One boy, no taller than my thigh, navigated through the forest carrying a bow far larger than his frame, his eyes scanning the canopy, predicting movement before it occurred. I watched, transfixed and unnerved. The elders orchestrated silently, nodding and gesturing, their orders precise yet unspoken. The village moved as one organism, yet each part retained individual cunning, each mind calculating, learning, adapting. Our intelligence reports began to fail. Supplies disappeared from depots, stockpiles of ammunition vanished overnight,
Patrols sent to investigate returned damaged or empty-handed. Communications flickered and failed. Our meticulously coded transmissions intercepted or misdirected. Morale among our troops faltered. Commands once executed with unwavering discipline now arrived delayed, corrupted, or misinterpreted. I cataloged each disruption, each lapse, each failure of systems that we had deemed infallible. The humans had learned to predict us. Raids we believed would overwhelm them were anticipated with uncanny precision.
Ambushes, not crude or accidental, but deliberate, struck squads at vulnerable points. Weapons, once thought inadequate, became instruments of terror. Fires flared in calculated bursts, smoke veiling movements, creating confusion we could not counteract. Their cunning was raw yet sophisticated, instinctual yet deliberately honed. It was terrifying. I observed moments of quiet that betrayed the intensity of their preparation. At night, fires burned in isolated circles. Humans moved silently across the forest floor, shadowed by trees, communicating with hand signals, gestures, and subtle calls. Maps etched in dirt, sketches carved into stones, and coded markings along trails all indicated meticulous planning. Theirs was not chaos. It was order born from necessity, innovation born from desperation, courage forged in the crucible of survival. Even within the village, tensions were managed without visible conflict. Disagreements settled with terse gestures, decisions executed swiftly, efficiently, without hesitation. There was no delay, no compromise, no dissent that weakened them. Every individual acted for the collective survival of the whole, yet retained a deadly independence that made prediction all the more impossible. It was unity without uniformity, synchronization without submission, a balance my kind had never mastered. I began to feel a slow, creeping dread, a recognition I could not dismiss. My peers claimed the anomalies were coincidence, the setbacks minor, insignificant. Yet I knew better. The humans were orchestrating a revolution, not just within their borders, but against our assumptions, our control, our dominance. They were small, fragile, yet organized into something unstoppable. The forest around their village seemed alive, attuned to their presence, responding to their movements. Every patrol we sent, every reconnaissance, every calculated strike was met with adaptation, resistance, and cunning we could not predict. Reports from the frontier described phantoms, squads disappearing without trace, supplies rendered useless, communications sabotaged, and entire positions abandoned. Even when we overpowered them temporarily, the humans returned, stronger, smarter, their tactics refined, their will unbroken. They learned from every encounter, cataloged every failure of ours, and exploited it. It was a system of perpetual evolution, their ingenuity compounding like wildfire, spreading with relentless speed.
And yet, the terror was not solely in their skill, it was in their gaze. I watched one human, a young girl perhaps 12 cycles of her life, crouched beside a fallen tree, her face smeared with ash, her eyes steady as she observed an approaching squad. The same spark I had glimpsed weeks before blazed in her stare, fearless, calculating, defiant. That ember, once small, had become a flame. The air around the village thrummed with inevitability. Each beat of their heart seemed to echo like a drum, signaling the approach of something larger, something unstoppable. I felt it deep in my chest, fear. Alien, unbidden, yet undeniable. My sensors recorded the changes in their posture, the coordination in their movements, the invisible threads of strategy weaving across the village. They were more than survivors. They were predators, and we, once the hunters, were becoming the prey. At dusk, I watched them emerge from the forest in silent formations, shadowed by the dimming light. Tools in hand, weapons at ready, they fanned out across the valley, marking the land, testing boundaries, probing defenses. Our troops reacted, but hesitantly, uncertainly. Every step of the humans seemed preordained, yet improvisational, fluid yet exact. The rhythm of their assault, though subtle, carried a message. We are learning, we are evolving, and we will not yield. As night fully settled, the forest whispered around the village, shadows stretching and twisting like sentinels.
I remained in my observation tower, recording, analyzing, fearful, and in awe. The small village had become a nexus of threat and potential, a storm gathering, unseen yet inevitable. And I knew, with an instinct that was at once thrilling and terrifying, that when the humans struck next, it would not be merely to survive, it would be to dominate. The first whisper of that storm stirred the leaves in the forest, the faintest vibration carrying the promise of upheaval. And I, perched in the spire, realized with a shiver that we had already entered the eye of it. The first attack came without warning. Night had draped the outposts in darkness, the usual hum of generators and patrol drones creating a rhythm we assumed unbreakable. Yet, by the time the first alarm flared, it was already too late. Human squads, small and swift, slipped through defenses we had once deemed impenetrable. Sensor grids flickered, alarms malfunctioned, and entire garrisons vanished as if the earth itself had swallowed them.
In the smoldering ruins, only scorched earth and whispers of human cruelty remained. I watched from the command balcony, my optics trained on the horizon where the village below had once appeared insignificant. Now it pulsed with a quiet power, a menace I had not anticipated. Entire territories, previously unchallenged, fell under the silent sway of these humans. Paths we had secured, supply lines we considered unbreachable, and observation posts we relied on were now compromised. It was as if the village had grown overnight, expanding its influence far beyond its physical borders. Our councils convened in panic. Generals shouted, scribes scurried with maps, and analysts debated strategies, yet none could account for the audacity of these humans. Every plan assumed they would remain passive, that fear would dictate their survival. Our intelligence had underestimated them, blinded us with arrogance. Yet here they were, moving with precision, striking with purpose, and leaving devastation in their wake. The logic of our empire faltered under the unpredictable cunning of these creatures. The humans themselves were silent. No banners waved, no cries of victory echoed through the night. Each act of destruction was understated yet profound. A toppled communications tower, a supply depot ablaze, a patrol vanishing without trace. Every action was a statement. We are not insignificant. I felt awe mixed with fear as I catalogued each strike. Something raw, primal, and almost intoxicating surged through my sensors. I had seen empires topple in simulation, in history, yet never had I witnessed it unfold in real time, orchestrated by beings so small, so fragile by all conventional measures. From the balcony, I could see the human scouts moving with silent intent. Even in shadows, their coordination was remarkable. Signals passed through gestures and subtle markers in the terrain. One human, barely the size of my thigh, led a group through ravines and tree lines with effortless authority, anticipating our countermeasures before we enacted them. Their intelligence was not mere instinct, it was strategy, calculation, and courage fused into a lethal harmony. The air trembled with tension as we scrambled to respond. Our forces moved to reclaim lost territory, but hesitation spread like contagion. Soldiers second-guessed orders, formations faltered, and even the most elite squads were ensnared by ambushes we would have once considered impossible. It was a dance we did not understand, a rhythm composed by creatures who had nothing to lose, yet wielded everything they had with deadly precision. And then I saw it, the moment that broke all illusions. A human detachment, no more than 20 in number, descended upon a fortified outpost on the northern ridge. Defense turrets fired relentlessly, plasma beams cut swaths through the approaching trees, yet the humans advanced. They navigated debris, avoided fire, and countered our traps as if anticipating them in real time. By dawn, the outpost was ours no longer. Smoke and rubble marked their victory, and I realized that our strongest assumptions had been shattered. In the command chambers, our leaders could not conceal their shock. Confident generals, once masters of strategy, sat slumped over holographic maps, whispering in disbelief. Arrogance had blinded us, and the humans exploited it with a clarity that was terrifying. They were not attacking for territory alone. They were rewriting the rules of engagement.
Every action was measured to redefine the balance of power itself. I felt a strange exhilaration amidst my dread, a recognition of something beyond comprehension. The humans were no longer simple survivors. They were predators learning to hunt an empire. And as I watched the fires of our fallen outposts flicker in the distance, I understood the terrible truth. The tide had shifted, irreversibly. Even as our ships scrambled to reinforce positions, even as our soldiers readied for counterstrike, I could see it in their movements. Patience, precision, foresight. They waited, observing, learning. Every failure of ours became a lesson for them, every hesitation exploited with ruthless efficiency. My heart, or the closest approximation I can call one, tightened with fear. We had underestimated them, we had mocked them, and now they had shown us that the smallest ember, when nurtured, could set an empire ablaze. By the end of the cycle, the northern ridge was lost, the outposts in disarray, and our communication lines unstable. The humans, quiet and unassuming, disappeared into the forests as silently as they had come. We were left to ponder the devastation, our arrogance laid bare, our assumptions annihilated. The empire we had known, confident and supreme, was no longer unchallenged. The humans were no longer prey.
They were the storm rising, and I, perched high above the valley, felt it in my chest. Awe, fear, and the stark realization that the world as we knew it had changed forever. Dawn broke over the horizon, pale and trembling, and with it came the humans. From the depths of the surrounding forests, they emerged in waves, silent yet inexorably precise. Their movements were synchronized with an eerie perfection, almost as if the forest itself guided them, whispering paths and hiding spots we had never noticed. Even from my vantage atop the spires of the capital, the sight was impossible to dismiss. A river of small figures, winding through ravines and undergrowth, converging toward the heart of our dominion. The capital shivered beneath their approach. Its towers, once proud and unassailable, trembled with the weight of anticipation. Commanders barked orders that echoed across the stone plazas, while our elite squads mobilized to intercept the advancing tide. Plasma walls ignited, aerial bombardments streaked across the sky, and automated turrets unleashed volleys of energy with deadly intent. Yet, for every barrier erected, every assault repelled, the humans adapted. They were like water flowing over rocks, flexible, relentless, impossible to contain. Streets we had secured with precision were breached. Ingenious devices, crude by our engineering standards, yet flawless in effect, dismantled barricades from within. Bridges, reinforced with steel and energy fields, collapsed under traps that bore the signature of human cunning. Every structural assumption, every calculation we had relied upon was rendered irrelevant by their audacity. My optics tracked a squad navigating a bridge as it collapsed beneath them. Not panic, not hesitation, only forward motion. The humans moved as if the laws of physics themselves had bent to their will. I observed from my tower as a human detachment scaled the outer monuments, climbing impossibly steep walls with ropes and ladders improvised from the surrounding environment. Flags, once our symbols of dominion, were torn and replaced with the ragged banners of the village, waving defiantly in the wind. I could hear their chants carried faintly on the morning air, syllables alien yet filled with a rhythm that stirred dread deep within my chest. Even the most stoic of our generals faltered, their pride dissolving in real time as reports of breaches streamed in from every sector. The chaos was orchestrated. Despite their size and apparent fragility, the humans displayed a tactical cohesion we could not penetrate. They advanced in overlapping formations, using terrain to their advantage, collapsing defensive lines before we could react. Smoke, fire, and the smell of scorched earth filled the avenues and plazas. Our soldiers, trained for precision and coordination, fell into disarray. Energy shields flickered and failed under unexpected strain. Troop morale waned as the humans, small, tireless, and daring, continued their inexorable march toward the inner sanctums of power. From my observation deck, I recorded each instance of ingenuity. One human detonated a concealed charge beneath an automated defense array, while another bypassed the shattered machinery entirely, leaving our elite squads scrambling to adjust. Bridges and gates we had assumed impenetrable now lay in ruins,
And yet the humans moved with terrifying calm. There was no hesitation. There was no doubt. Their audacity was not reckless. It was deliberate, calculated, and terrifyingly effective. In the central plaza, I watched a group of humans raise their banners atop the highest spire, chanting in languages we barely comprehend. The symbolism was unmistakable. They had arrived, not merely to survive or fight, but to claim dominion. From this height, their movements were poetry in motion, chaos incarnate, yet flawless in execution. Entire sectors of our capital were overrun. Guards fell silent, soldiers retreated, and the once impenetrable structures now seemed like paper facades against a force that refused to yield. Fear spread like wildfire. Even the generals who had faced insurrection, rebellion, and interplanetary conflict now wavered. Their confidence crumbled, leaving only a hollow shell of command. And within me, a strange mixture of terror and awe took root. I cataloged every maneuver, every exploit, every display of courage, and I realized the truth that we had long refused to see. These humans, once a village, a whisper in the forest, now dictated the fate of our empire. They did not pause, they did not falter. As we attempted to regroup, to rally, the humans anticipated our counters, turning our strengths against us. A squadron of elite soldiers, poised for retaliation, was lured into a trap where collapsing walkways and concealed pits neutralized them instantly. Tactical drones were hijacked, redirected, and used to sow chaos among our formations.
Each act of resistance we attempted was anticipated, studied, and countered. By midday, the capital itself seemed transformed. The streets we had patrolled daily were no longer ours. The monuments, once symbols of absolute power, were adorned with human flags. Fires blazed in strategic locations, cutting off access to key zones. Smoke obscured sensors, masking the movements of small squads that appeared and vanished without warning. We had underestimated them, and now we were paying the price. Amidst the devastation, I felt an alien pang of regret, admiration, fear. The humans were not merely attacking, they were rewriting history. The empire we had built with certainty, pride, and invincibility was being dismantled by creatures we had once considered insignificant. Each step, each strategy, each act of audacity was a testament to their resilience and ingenuity. And I knew, in the deepest recesses of my perception, that we would never reclaim what had been lost. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, the humans held the inner districts. Their banners flapped against the burning sky, their voices echoed defiance, and our soldiers, once confident, elite, unquestioned, cowered in scattered groups. The capital, our pride, had become a stage for humiliation. And yet within me, a pulse of exhilaration stirred. I had witnessed something unprecedented, terrifying, magnificent. A village had grown into a force capable of toppling empires. Night fell, but the siege continued. Fires blazed, shadows shifted, and the humans disappeared into the alleys and ruins, striking where we least expected. Our drones patrolled, our reinforcements scrambled, but the tide had irrevocably turned. From my tower, I observed the final signal. A human climbing the central spire, raising a banner high above the capital, silhouetted against the crimson sky. A declaration, silent, yet absolute. The humans had arrived. We were no longer the hunters. We were prey. The first day of the siege ended not with victory, but with awe, disbelief, and the chilling realization that our empire was at the mercy of a village grown monstrous with courage and cunning. The humans were chaos incarnate, yet precise, ruthless, and beautiful in their execution. And in that quiet moment atop my observation deck, I understood the truth that would haunt every corner of our dominion. The empire we knew was gone, and history would never forget the day a village claimed the capital. The city lay in quiet ruin.
Smoke curled lazily from shattered spires, drifting upward like the faint exhalation of a defeated giant. Alarms had ceased, the cacophony of battle replaced by an eerie calm that blanketed the streets, the plazas, and the shattered avenues. I walked among the ruins, my sensors cataloging every detail, the scorched masonry, the splintered metal, the remnants of devices meant to assert dominance, but now rendered useless. Each fragment told a story of human audacity, their ingenuity, and, at times, their cruelty. Yet amidst the devastation, there was method, precision, and a strange mercy. Few had been spared among our ranks, yet those who survived bore the unmistakable mark of selective restraint. Innocents, those who could not fight, were left unscathed, herded aside or hidden in the shadows of rubble, preserved as if to demonstrate that this destruction was not mindless. The humans were ruthless, yet purposeful. Each act, whether of sabotage, destruction, or restraint, seemed deliberate, as if teaching a lesson beyond mere victory, a lesson in resilience, in audacity, in the uncompromising will to survive and ascend. Their village, once insignificant, a faint flicker on the map of our dominion, had become the capital. It rose amidst the ruins like a living testament, tents and makeshift structures replaced with fortified compounds, banners unfurling atop the surviving spires, signaling triumph, endurance, and an unyielding claim. Streets were reclaimed, paths reorganized, and even in destruction there was order, a reflection of minds far sharper than we had allowed ourselves to believe. I walked the corridors of once pristine government halls, noting the remnants of our governance scattered across the floor. Console screens smashed, data cores ripped from their sockets, and yet in the pattern of destruction, I sensed a lesson. The humans had demonstrated the futility of hubris, the fragility of complacency. Our strength, measured in size, technology, and command, had been irrelevant. The qualities we had dismissed, resilience, unity, audacity, had prevailed. The air was thick with the scent of ash and ozone, but beneath it lingered something I had not anticipated: awe. As I cataloged their actions, I realized that we had witnessed more than conquest. We had observed evolution in motion. From a village, they had become a force capable of toppling an empire.
Every barricade dismantled, every ambush executed, every territory claimed spoke of a species that refused limits. They did not wait for permission. They did not ask for recognition. They became extraordinary because they willed themselves to be. I paused atop the highest tower, looking down at the new capital sprawled beneath me. Humans moved among the streets with the confidence of masters, tending to their wounded, repairing what could be salvaged, and preparing for whatever threat might come next. They were silent in their triumph, not boastful, not celebratory, yet every gesture and movement carried purpose and meaning. I documented each detail with reverence. These were no ordinary beings. They were legends in the making. Even as I recorded, I reflected on the arrogance that had blinded us. We believed that dominance was dictated by size, technology, and force of arms. We underestimated the smallest spark, dismissing courage as weakness, tenacity as folly. And yet here they stood, a testament to the principle that the measure of strength lies not in the tools one wields, but in the heart that wields them. We had attempted to destroy them, but in doing so, we had nurtured something greater than survival: legacy. I moved through the empty corridors of the city, pausing at shattered walls and broken consoles, imagining the humans' quiet deliberations, their whispered strategies, their careful observation. Each act of destruction they had performed was an act of teaching, a revelation that challenged every assumption we had held about superiority. They were methodical, yet adaptive, ruthless, yet merciful. Their story, I realized, was one not merely of survival, but of transcendence. As the sun set, painting the smoke-streaked skies in hues of crimson and gold, I understood the final truth. Humans did not need our permission to ascend. They never had. Strength, courage, and resilience were theirs to claim, unbound by expectation, unshackled by fear. In the quiet aftermath of fire and ruin, I recorded their deeds not as a warning, but as reverent documentation, a testament to the extraordinary. The city rested. The humans remained vigilant. And I, an observer who had once counted them inconsequential, felt the undeniable weight of awe and fear intertwined. History had been rewritten. Legends had been born.
And I understood, fully, that we had been witnesses to something eternal. The moment a species refused limits,
defied odds, and in doing so became extraordinary. The silence was profound, yet it was not emptiness, it was anticipation. A spark had become a flame, a village had become a capital, and the humans, ever relentless, were only beginning.